Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Michael Kahn, Rob H, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nodrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. How's it going in Discord?
Going well. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Sounds good.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Hello. Hey, John.
Morning.
Morning. Hey, 10th.
Yesterday.
Good morning, everybody.
All my son. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say I better check if the guys in Discord are off mute. Go ahead.
All my son had yesterday was 2 points in the sky, and you cannot observe a spherical sky being on a flat Earth.
Of course you can.
So he had.
Uh-oh. He's wrong then. Just tell him to look at the celestial sphere model. It is a flat plane that bisects the sphere.
I broke down everything you said, John, and what Brian said. How the flat Earth, how the globe came to life with flat Earth measurements. Didn't want to hear any of it, but everybody else heard it.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody at work, which I was doing it at break time, so I don't think I can get in trouble for that. And he understood it all, and his response was, "Well, God, maybe."
Yeah, but it doesn't say that in Scripture. My son tries that nonsense. I said, yes, God could, but it does not say it in Scripture.
Well, the thing is I don't even think that's the response. I was just dumbfounded into silence. Like, how could you say that? Are you saying the ball is God? Like, I don't get it. It's a non sequitur response.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's just non sequitur.
God may be what?
It's non sequitur. You're trying to fill in the blanks for him. Like, make your own claim.
No, I'm trying to figure out the logic in it, meaning God created everything.
No.
Oh, okay, what's the context?
There is no logic, Tim. That's why we're saying it's non sequitur. You know,
yeah, but my son does the same thing, though. He hears everything and he says, but God could do anything.
That's
Meaning,
what I was.
He can make a sphere Earth.
Okay, that's fine.
non sequitur.
Yeah, he could make a sphere Earth, but if he did, he'd make it work with planar geometry, which is what's used. But he didn't, because he hasn't.
That was my point. If he did, then you'd have curvature at 1.22 miles at a 1 foot observer height. It's just simple.
No, that wouldn't work either. Like, if he was going to do it, he'd make you angles be curved lines, and that's how we would understand them.
Yeah, in other words, if it was the case that the Earth was a sphere, some of our fundamental understandings of geometry would be very different, and they're not.
Yes, you're both right, but I'm right as well. If there was curvature and we saw it, then you can't deny you saw a measured curvature. Now, would that go against angle measurements, elevation angle measurements needing a flat base? No, yeah, it would still go against that. But the point is, you would see curvature. I mean, if you hold a basketball, you see a ball, you see a sphere-shaped sports ball to play basketball or soccer ball. There's no doubt there's curvature. There's no doubt there's a radius within to that outside of that ball, a diameter in full. They got to be made to size. It can't be a huge beach ball that the soccer players are kicking around. It's got to match a certain requirement. So
you just did the same trick Neil deGrasse Tyson does. You did the same thing just then.
no,
Yeah,
I
he did.
didn't. I'm trying to explain that if
Yeah, you're doing
you
it a
had
different way to
ball-
him, but it's still the same trick. You're right, John. What you're doing is a tool to explain how their ball would require curvature is the way that Neil deGrasse Tyson explains how a ball with curvature is the Earth. It's just a slightly different order, but it is the same magic trick. You are right. Good spot.
No, you guys are so hypersensitive to everything.
I'm not saying
that's
you're trying to
shit
trick
around.
us. I'm saying that process of logic that you've just employed is repurposed by Tyson to convince you that the basketball or beach ball he's holding has the same properties you've just described with a geometric limitation at the edge of the ball blocking the stuff behind it. Well, that reification when he slaps the beach ball and says that stuff is flat is a very carefully constructed magic trick. And the logic, you're just using the same logic. But just not concluding it by saying, therefore, the horizon's Earth curve and boats go over it, which is what Tyson's doing.
He couldn't even get that far with me. He would be destroyed because if the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959, then every horizon, that's every horizon distance, would have to be 1.22 miles square root of the observer's height in feet. So it's over right there. Then what he does with it afterwards, who cares?
But you need.
Well, that's still affirming the consequent, though.
It does when he does it, when you take what is actually modus tollens and then repurpose it with an assumption of a sphere Earth being the ball you're holding, then it's just an affirming the consequent, correct? But I was going to say, you just need a much more simple form of logic to make your claim. Is it modus ponens? If Earth is flat, it'll be measured flat. Earth is flat, therefore it's measured flat. Well, you need the same to apply to a globe if you're going to claim it. If Earth is a globe, then it's measured as a globe. But then you end up with, well, we draw a tangent plane. You're like, no. It needs to sit in simple modus ponens. If A, then B. A, therefore B. If you haven't got that, then you haven't got A, which is Earth being a sphere.
It didn't need to get that far. It was your first summary was perfect. Then you wouldn't be using a sextant to measure a ball-shaped Earth because sextant's angle measuring device needs two straight lines meeting at a common point called the vertex. So sextant's the wrong tool for a ball. Alrighty then.
Oh, indeedy.
Well, I mean, sextant cannot work on a ball. It doesn't work on a ball. It cannot work on a ball. It's an angle measuring device, planar geometry, yes, but not this curvature crap. You can't do it with a curved baseline. And they're doing it supposedly from the surface of the Earth. Oh, but the books say everything is at sea level. The books say that it's coming from the rational horizon, but you're not at the rational horizon as a ball cut in half. That's the imagery to lie with. Where are you actually doing it from? Sea level. That's why dip correction and the Nautical Almanac and everything assumes. Now, see, the doublespeak, hopefully people have caught it by now, is when they say that everything has to match the center of Earth, they're talking about sea level. They're talking about that 180. That when you get your eyeball to sea level, that's your 180 that they bring down to the equatorial plane. It's not actually happening. It's just sea level.
Sure. Their equatorial plane is the flat plane in the center of the celestial sphere model with a globe wrapped around it. Globe burger. The beef is the flat plane. Or chicken. I mean, it doesn't have to be a beef burger.
It's just got to have a 90-degree. That's it, right?
You got it.
Yeah, it's so over. I mean, they're really these gatekeepers, these trolls. They're just wasting our time. I think we should just not even address them, talk to them. We've done it over and over. It's like I haven't listened to it all, but I caught some of it when Brenda came in and started talking to Flatzoids, live chat. Uh, I mean, everyone now is killing it with the sextant argument. Everyone's killed it with the black swan. Everyone's killing it from their own experience as they live on this earth. We don't live on a globe.
Yeah, the thing that got me is that you can concede every single point that they want to make, and it still requires a flat plane.
Indeed. See, that I love what you did there because you took the sextant, which is an angle measuring device, and reworded that whole concept into that statement, which is beautiful.
It's going to be a short after show today, just so you know.
You're calling it now, so I hope some fundy comes in preaching the globe, like right at like 2 minutes after.
I mean, if that takes place, then maybe you guys can take up the slack. I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I don't want that to happen.
I'm just worn out. It's nothing technical or anything else. Just rewiring, and I had to take all of the stuff off the shelf so that I could cut holes in it. Thanks, Neil. Thanks. Thanks, Neil. Thanks. Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Neil. Thanks. Yeah. I had to rip off everything, which is the router and everything connected to it, and all the data cables and video cables and audio cables and USB cables running from one part of the room to the other part of the room. I had to rip it all out so I could get to this shelf because it was all running behind it and conduit. So I had to rip it all off the wall, to take it off, cut 4 holes in it, inch-wide holes, to let the heat out of the new computer when it comes. Because it had a shelf over it, but with a little tiny fan in the top of it, if it ever got too hot, the fan turns on, it just blows it everywhere. It doesn't matter, there's a shelf 3 or 4 inches.
When's it coming in? When's it coming in?
When's what coming in?
Computer.
I don't know. They've got to build it. Typically with a normal boring computer, it'd probably be a couple of weeks, which it's been. But it's not a typical normal boring computer, so I would imagine it's going to take them a little bit longer. So I'm not going to pester them. I've already pestered them enough. I'm quite fussy.
You're telling me. Can you go Master B? I got a slide to talk about before the show starts.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Can I get a mic check quick?
Yeah, you're
Check,
good.
check.
We definitely know you're here, Neil.
Nautical mile. See if you can catch it. Officially, a nautical mile is defined as 1,852 meters or 6,080 feet. But originally, it was a minute of arc on a great circle.
You're going to need a flat plane for that.
It is the second definition, the minute of arc on the great circle, we will use here, as do every sailor around the world, thereby showing the standard makers what we really think of them. It's the sighted line of the star above the horizon for the angular. That's what it's always been used for. then they decided, it's like, Brian says, flat Earth angle measurements to Polaris back engineered. We got to give it some distance. It's never the sexagesimal system of the Babylonians and Sumerians was of a circle, not a sphere. That's number one. Number two, a circle is always 360 degrees. No matter what size the circle is. Doesn't matter what radius that circle has. It's always going to have 360 degrees. A degree is 60 minutes. A minute is 60 seconds. And it's a unit of measurement using a circle. But originally, it was a minute of arc on a great circle. Confession made right there. Then they decided, you know what, let's get some distances. Let's figure out what arc second is, an arc minute is. Let's give it, here, let's see, it'll match Polaris perfectly if we say 6,080 feet, but it's not the same as a statute mile. Well, it doesn't matter. We'll just say statute mile we use for something else, but for everything else with angle measurements, we'll say this because then it'll all work out. Pretty clever.
Thanks. Yeah, the back
I'd say
engineering.
very clever.
Yeah, the back engineering is out of necessity, though, isn't it? So, while we think we look at it and go with a lot of aspects of heliocentrism and go, "Wow, how beautiful!" You go, yeah. Then you kind of look at it from a different angle and go, "This is born out of necessity. They've got to do this." They have a sine formula as a good example, right? That's less elegant, isn't it? It's not as beautiful, but absolutely required. And it's that, to me, is one of those dirty little secrets. Why is it we're only hearing about this in 2022? What's going on?
Well, I think there's times when things go on hidden for a period of years and centuries, and then there's also times where the creator says, you know what, it's time to unveil a few things before the other things come. I think it's timing. I think the timing is perfect for this. I'm busy chasing scientism out of the pulpit. My whole goal here is to show the big lie and how universities and seminaries have fooled the pastors. Because, they show pictures and they say all this stuff. And the pastors are trying to study something else, but then they throw in all this stuff. And then, you got answers in Genesis and Danny Faulkner. He's an astronomer for 45 years. And, so then they look to guys like that to make up this area because they're more interested in what the Bible says about the work of God for salvation through Jesus. And so they almost like carry this heliocentrism as extra baggage. So my whole commitment is to open the eyes of the pastors who love God, and so they can see this.
Doesn't it come with the gig?
No,
saying that the pastors have been fooled by the priests because it's come from them, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, that's the history of it. Yes, I agree. But the pastors don't like the priests and say the priests change other parts of the Bible. So now it's time for them to see.
Okay, and the shop floor.
See this part.
And the shop floor workers don't like the management. But so what? It's part of the gig, isn't it?
No, not the gig. If you're moving the lie without knowing you're moving the lie. Part of the gig, if you're moving the lie and knowing you're part of the lie, yes, then you're part of the gig.
No, the lie's part of the gig.
No, again, we're coming at it from two different points.
No, you don't like this, do you? I don't know why you're bracing against this. The lie is part of the gig.
I'm not bracing against it. I'm trying to tell you there's another version of it that you're not even allowing to come through.
Oh, okay.
Like, for example, when I went to school and I disagreed with my science teachers and biology teachers that the earth was a ball spinning, what did they say? They don't care. They say, I don't even believe it. I just got to teach it. Okay, well, that was enough truth for me to figure out something's going on here.
Morning, guys.
If you're part of the gig, you wouldn't be saying that kind of stuff.
That didn't address anything, but there we go.
Oh, my gosh. Good morning, chocolate.
My son threw at what my son said finally was all you're listening to is a bunch of YouTubers.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Arwin, trying to get in on the introduction, of course. 10th Man, Neil, Refracted Curvature, Chocolate Saying, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
It's about freaking time. Holy
Good
shoot.
afternoon.
Is your introduction taking longer these days?
Time, it's exactly 2 minutes past. It's about a 60-second introduction, 60 seconds worth of music. What do you want?
We had 3 conversations while you were doing that.
The natives are restless, and you're taking your time about it.
I don't know, you're having conversations. I don't mute my line, so you'll have to talk through me while I'm doing the intro.
Just start the hunt. We're
Start the
ready
hump?
to go.
What? Start the
That's
what?
what we do. We talk right through you. It's hard, but we do it.
Oh, you manage it during the live show too, Neil.
Got him.
Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Yeah, Neil. I'm sorry, no.
Physical. We've been told there's no geometry behind this physical thing that you're talking about. As a matter of fact, we're told we don't see it anymore, or could never see it. Why would we expect to see it?
Yeah, let's get a few quotes. Nobody's
The
expecting
horizon
to see.
seems to be dependent on
My
its
bad,
apparent location. Well, based on the conditions of the air and our height of observation, that does not comport with the sightings that you would bump into with an actual geometry and a distance to that geometry.
Right, well, that's
Someone
what's asserted in the
define-
curve maths. It's asserted that we have physical geometry that we can see with boats falling over it, and that geometry is called Earth curve at the horizon, marked with an X, labelled horizon in their maths. That's their physical geometry. Earth curve, boats falling over it, but buildings blocked by it. You know the score if you're a glober. Yet, meanwhile, quote, plan a walk, nobody's claiming we'll see physical geometry. Or
Someone
AB
defines
science. No.
The sea
Second time you've
horizon
interrupted
first.
these quotes.
What is a horizon?
I give up on the quotes.
Hello?
But yes, we're being told that we don't see physical geometry because we've pointed out that it can't be physical geometry.
Well, I know, but before we go there, can someone please define what the sea horizon is?
The horizon's the arbitrary position where the sky or meets the land or sea.
Okay. And what does sea level mean?
The level that the sea is at
And what is that?
depends on the time. I don't
How
know.
about
I'm not
from
near the
shore?
sea.
How
I'm in
about
the
from
middle of the
shore?
land. I don't know. You want me to get my...
I'm leading you. Hang on. Just play along. So at shore, when you want to do a measurement, what do you use as your baseline zero?
The horizon.
Sea level.
Okay.
See, the mountain is how high above what?
Sea level.
Sea level. All the heights of all the elevation, everything of anything is anything above sea level. So how do they treat a 20-foot building? 20 foot from what?
Your baseline.
Thank you. So sea level is your baseline. And because of the impossibility for us to see forever, the horizon, the demarcation, is where the sky seems to meet that baseline, sea level. And everything's measured from sea level, either below sea level or above sea level. So sea level is zero. Sea level is the equator on their globe. Sea level is the plane.
Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
Commentary.
Nah, I mean, you don't really need that. Most globe believers don't even know anything about that. So if you'd ask them, they're just like, what is this mumbo jumbo you're talking about? I mean, all we need is an orthographic view of a globe, then drawing a circle around it, and that is the preponderance that everything proves the Earth is a globe.
But how'd you
Like
get the
the
angle?
video I just linked to.
How'd you get the angle, though? The surface is curving. You've just had a description of what sea level is.
Yeah, but you don't have to understand that to know the Earth is a globe, Nathan.
Yeah, I'm not asking to understand the Earth. I'm asking to understand an angle and how you get it. If you haven't got a straight line, you've got a curved surface. Moving on. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
I wouldn't expect to see any deviation because your reference frames are ruined.
We're moving? Really?
Well, Neil, we're allowing them to assume that it's a sphere and that it's spinning in this example, just so that we can destroy them with their faulty use of logic.
Just by saying axial rotation, right? Because for it to have an axial rotation, it would have to be, you would need axis and a radial value.
That's correct.
Any evidence of the Earth radius, i.e. the R value required to assume a radius to give you a rotation value?
Uh-oh. Any Globers want to answer any of these questions? Anybody want to tell us about this ball?
There's
There's
two
also
celestial
fifth-
poles. There's two celestial poles. That's proof of a radius.
Sorry, two celestial poles assumes the outcome that you're trying to prove if you state that they're celestial poles, i.e. at the ends of an axis.
But they're still using a flat plane in that assertion as well. So I'll let them slide on that.
Saying that when they
If there
take
were two
elevation angles to the stars and assert by way of begging the question fallacy that they're antipodal positioned stars, or your sky is antipodal, you're saying that when they measure the angles, they still need a flat plane to measure the angles, right?
Right. Well, in the celestial sphere model, which is a flat plane model, is where they're getting the idea of antipodal star rotation. So they need a flat plane for that claim.
How do they get the idea of...
John.
Oh, no, I'm not following. If you've got the celestial sphere model, that's a flat plane with the dome of the heavens, if you will, above a given section. So obviously you're only going to have a hemisphere because that's your view to the horizon at 0 to 180 on a flat plane, like a protractor, like a semicircle protractor. Okay, so if you're using a flat plane and looking at the stars, how do you say that that's what they use to make an assumption of antipodal positioning? That doesn't follow at all.
Yeah, well, what they do is they complete the sphere. That's why they have the celestial sphere, right? And it's bisected by the flat plane. That they take the two hemispheres and just glue them together in their minds and conceptually draw that out as such.
Hold on. But both of them, okay. So conceptually, you can take one map that's conceptually depicted with the actualization ignored of a perspective view of the sky, turn it into a semicircle that you measure with a protractor as they move from your position over the land, and then glue it upside down on the bottom of a flat plane. So you've got two flat planes stuck antipodal to one another.
Yeah, that's what they do.
I'm holding my face here in disbelief, because surely it goes through the Haversine formula first, transposes it up onto a secondary inner concave sphere to have the assumption that you're moving around that map to later say that you're on the outside of it. But you're saying that they go straight from sticking to semi-spheres, is that the right word, on top of each other when you're talking about the view of the sky. Suddenly the view of the what we now call the southern hemisphere, in air quotes, is actually just a flat plane stuck to the bottom of the northern hemisphere on a flat map. I'm lost for words.
Well, see, the Haversine formula is when you want to take and change that flat plane into a ball and then place it spinning around the sun, or however you want to conceptualize it after that. That's separate from the celestial sphere.
In the raw form of the celestial sphere is literally north and south quote-unquote hemispheres stuck on top of each other, antipodal, so that the two maps still work flat. It's just you've got to imagine that you've gone over the lip of the edge if you reify the model, and then you're underneath and you flip it all the way over, and then the stuff that was antipode from your position is just the northern hemisphere stuck to the bottom on a wafer thin disc. That's nuts.
Yeah, and well, yeah, that's just how they do it. And then they, instead of the sky turning over top of you, they imagine that the plane is actually shifting out of phase until it reaches that antipodal position.
Hold on. Shifting out of phase. What? Out of phase. Hold on. Out of phase to me means if I've got a wavelength that starts on a positive incline. So if you've got three lines and you're starting at the middle line, and the lines run horizontally, right, and you're going to draw a wave, and it's going to start in the middle line, go up to the top line, and then down to the middle, and then through the middle down to the bottom line, and then up again. And that's one complete wave, okay? But if I start that same point, and instead of going up to the top line and then down, I go down to the bottom line and then up, right? That is out of phase with the original wave. That's what out of phase means. Now, in very literal diagrammatical terminology, when you looked at that in depictorial terms, you'd have a peak on top of a valley, and they are completely 100% antipode to one another. So in terminological terms, what a mouthful. Yeah, that's accurate, because what they're physically and literally doing in the model is just sandwiching the bottom half of the quote-unquote southern hemisphere underneath the northern. So yeah, okay, it's out of phase, but that's just bollocks. You know, it might meet the description, but it's still beggars belief. I can't quite believe what I'm hearing, to be honest. The terminology just makes it worse.
For terminological?
The terminology just makes it worse, regardless of my terrible grammar.
Well, see, yeah, that's the thing. If you're 1 degree out of phase with a plane, right, and you're on the plane.
Just stop, right. You cannot be out of phase in physical terms, right? It's like an electrical term. What do you mean out of phase? I'm not going to be out of phase with myself. What are you talking about?
I've been out of phase a few times.
That's what I was getting ready to say, is you can't take a plane out of phase.
No, you can't. This is nonsense. I mean, I can understand how you can glue the bottom half of a map or model underneath it just for ease. And then it becomes the ball of the heavens wrapped around two flat planes, one on top of the other, antipode. But it's just silly. Now, if that is the root origins to then have the Haversine formula applied to that, I mean, this is brilliant. However, if this is just a different way of looking at it with the isolation of the celestial sphere model, prior to or exclusive of any reification into a globe, then fine. But if it is part of the process, this is great. I don't know, you tell me. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Well, that's how they think about it from Earth. Now, if they're wanting to think about it like they're floating in space, they'll apply the Haber-Sign formula so they can give you the top-down view of the ball and the circles of, or the cones of unequal altitudes, whatever they want to call them, when they draw circles on balls and then say the radiuses are bent, that's when they'll have applied the Haber-Sign formula, right? But prior to that, it's just a celestial sphere with a flat plane bisecting it.
Okay. Needs a bit more investigation. It'd be interesting to see where the transition is utilised, because obviously we're only just seeing the Haber-Sign formula come to light. I was going to ask you about this in the pre-show, actually, John, because you chatted with Glober, I don't know if it's plural, but, at least one, about this. How do you square that circle in your... I'm asking you to speak on someone's behalf, I know that phrase. Let's just think of a rewording of that question. Why would you imagine they don't freak out when they come to that formula? Because doesn't it just jump off the page for what it is? The conversion from flat to globe? Does it jumps off the page to you, but I'm just surprised that when it's phrased as though it's a defense, or an argument for the globe, I'm a bit lost in how that works in a glober's mind, really.
Now you sound like me.
I think what in their minds they're seeing is, well, if I can mathematically derive the globe from this, then it's a globe. Forgetting that.
Just careful with your words. From this, what's this? This flat plane.
Yes, that's what I was getting ready to say. Yeah, from the flat plane. They want to forget this flat plane that they used to get it.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. I'm saying, given that what the Haber-Sign formula does is convert mathematically the flat plane you're measuring to a globe, wouldn't that... You're saying, well, because they've got a conversion to do that from a flat plane that you're measuring to a globe, then it makes it a globe. But that I can't square that logic, and I don't see how anyone else can.
I can explain. It's happening all the time. What do you think Al-Biruni did, supposedly? What do you think Eratosthenes did, supposedly?
No, these might not be real people. I can't ask them.
Let me finish.
I can't ask them.
Let me finish. They assume first. Then they have to make that assumption validate out of either experiment or whatever. They realize they can't, so it only works in the maths. That's why the globe Earth only works in the maths.
Yeah, but you're not hearing what Nathan's saying then.
I am hearing exactly what Nathan is saying. When you
hold on, don't argue about what I'm
something-
saying. Just let Neil paraphrase what he thinks I'm saying. Go ahead, Neil.
Well, it all has. How can you from a flat plane go to math and think you could turn it into a sphere without it opening up your eyes and realizing that, oh my God, what am I doing here? This is flat.
I'm trying to explain that to you. They assume it's a globe, then they have to go and prove it. Then they say, well,
but it's flat first.
I'm in the middle of.
Is it? I understand your exasperation in this instance. I'm sorry, Tenth, but I do empathise with Neil. Carry on.
I'm sorry.
They assume the Earth is a ball, a globe, a sphere. Then they assume sunlight comes in parallel. Then they assume that the measurement's coming from a flat plane, but it's the equatorial plane, the center origin of a circle. And they reify that into a sphere. So they live happily ever after mathematically, but not in reality.
But that's like saying I've got a Friera, and if I can make the numbers match a Ferrari, so if the Ferrari I'm trying to compete with, or replicate with my Friera, has got 500 horsepower, then if I stare deep within the engine of my Fiera and add a turbo and a lot of time, then I can make the same numbers, or the numbers will work. On paper, it'll have the same numbers as a Ferrari. Therefore, in my mind, because this Fiera, doesn't matter where I do this analogy, it always is going to be so long as I assume that the Fiera is a Ferrari at the outset, because you're saying, well, they assumed the sphere in the first outset. Okay, but they're going to be dealing with a Fiera. So, right, that's what they're going to be
Go to
working on.
Master B. Go to Master B. Pull up the
Can
slide
anyone
with
see what
the
I'm
three
saying?
pictures. Yeah, I'm
No
gonna
amount
show
of
it-
begging
I'm
the
gonna show it to
question
you.
or delusion changes the fact that you're working on a specific thing. You're working on a flat plane. You're working on a Fiera. You're wrenching on a Fiera. It doesn't matter that the numbers are going to match up at the end.
It's still flat.
Fine.
I
Oh my
agree.
gosh, you guys are crazy. Go to Master B. Show the slide.
Okie doke.
Okay. Summary of dip angles for various heights of observation above sea level. Top right illustration that's got a box around it. Height of eye, meters or feet. Dip angle, 0 meters, 0 feet. Dip angle, 0.0. Huh. Wow, this looks flat to me. Middle picture. Figure 2.7, the Nautical Almanac and the site reduction tables assume the sites are taken at sea level. Huh, I thought it came from the rational horizon. I thought all the Nautical Almanacs were going to be from the center of Earth, where you cut it in half and have a plane. Let me read that again. The Nautical Almanac and the site reduction tables assume that the sites are taken at sea level. For instance, from a periscope of a submarine barely emerging above the water. Oh, that's the dip correction. Bring your eye to the water. Let's go up to the box above it. Height of eye, 0 meters, 0 feet, 0.0. Yeah, no dip necessary when your eye is on the water. Sea level. Last picture, bottom right. Oh, listen, we know we're screwed, but let's just draw a circle underneath everything and they'll believe us. End of trick.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, it worked.
I get that, but if this was put in front of the people that I'm asking John about in this instance, right? There's a couple of issues with the bottom diagram. This observer's horizon, yeah, with the dip to the geometric physical limitation called Earth curve. Well, that's a straight line. You said earlier that they would claim that light comes in parallel. Again, straight lines. They don't have these anymore. So the people that are
Agreed.
appealing to Haversine's formula are utilizing debunked geometry. Well, after they assume that the Earth's a sphere, I'll just drop that in first. After they assume that the Fiera is a Ferrari and that they're going to be working on a Ferrari, and when it turns up as a Fiera, they assume that within the heart of that Fiera is the Ferrari's numbers, right? So they go to the wrenches and they go, right, we're going to use these bent wrenches because we bent them all. Right, but none of them will work to turn the nuts anymore. Yeah, I know that, but we're going to use them anyway. But they won't work. They bent. You bent them. You bent the wrenches. Well, that's like them bending this line. So if they're going to claim this geometric horizon, hey, Rufy, this is you. How's that geometric horizon working out for you? What's that infinite over our refraction? What? That's a lot of refraction. Always, you say, always. No one's claiming physical geometry, plan a walk. Yeah, they haven't got a straight line. So when I'm asking, how do they square this circle when the Haversine formula tells them that they're going to be taking measurements from a flat plane, and their line that they can almost weasel the idea that the dip is coming from a geometric horizon with a straight line to it, they already know it's bent. So there's so many things that, to me, as a globe believer in 2022, stand in the way of your fundamentalist religious belief with, people like me laughing at you. That it doesn't compute anymore. I'm struggling to understand why they still believe this shit. Excuse my language.
I think I can answer that.
Go ahead, John.
I think it's compartmentalization. They never address the entirety of the facts and evidence. They take a specific part when you mention it, and they run that through how it could be a sphere if this and that. Right. And then they keep doing that with just each individual bit, and they only apply that logic to the individual part. Right. And they never apply it to anything else. So
I see.
the horizon's only.
Now I get it now. I understand. So what you're saying is light comes in parallel. Okay. So if the Earth's a sphere radius 3959, it's all bent. You just said it was all parallel. That's a different issue. That's what you're saying.
Yes, see, and Kumavirus illustrated that well when he said that's a different argument.
I'd like to add to this. The Hammerstein formula is used from a projection, not from an elevation angle from a plane. It is shot out to the inner wall of a celestial sphere that's imaginary because of the way our eyes work. So they have this concave celestial sphere, and the inside all the stars are, and then from there it's reprojected on to Earth, which is a plane, but they create that arc and say that's what you live on, and it's between 2 points on a curved surface from a projection from the inside of a curved surface.
Hey,
It's not in the first step.
As we're on the subject, and Brian's just joined in. Great video on the horizon, Brian. And Brian's just released a video. Typically, I don't watch, but I don't know what it was about the title in this one that made me sit down and watch it, but I did. And in this instance, brilliant job, because Brian's just highlighting the double speak contradiction that they have in regards to a bent line, geometric, non-geometric horizon. As we're detailing that exact contradiction, let's welcome Brian. Hello, Brian.
Hey Nathan, thanks for that. I got actually the video is getting a lot more compliments than I expected. Consider it so simple.
Why?
Well, when you break down some of the more complicated subjects, for instance, dip angle correction, right? You give a very good, concise breakdown of both sides of the argument, how one works and how one doesn't work. In the case of dip angle, that could take 25 minutes. You know that, right? This didn't.
Yeah.
Highlighting their contradiction in regards to the geometric horizon did not take that long.
No, it was just showing what happens, because we always have to see every diagram in orthographic view. Whereas this is something I could do in what would be perspective view. And it's exactly like we see in reality. So I actually have a lot of hate even in the comments, and people trying to rework globers and people, our opposition, anti-flat earthers, trying to rework what was really happening there. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you can't rework what it is. It is what it is. They want to start asking me about, can you see Polaris from past the equator? Stupid stuff like that. Because they can't get away from reality. They have to somehow hijack reality. And they don't know how they can hijack just that. How do you hijack just that for the globe? How do you do that?
Yeah, they can't.
Probably...
Go on,
I was just going to say, sorry, that's probably the most important aspect, right? How you differentiate between their orthographic view that they show us all the time and an actual perspective view, which we actually have. And like we said, they always show us things in orthographic view, which, again, we'll never have. But the reality, the perspective, how we see, they don't ever show you that. They want you to not pay attention to any of that.
They can't show you that.
Even their orthographic view is based in planar geometry.
Yeah, it is.
And it requires straight lines. After the assumption of a sphere Earth, you still need tangent points to make the assertion. Shout out to the 100 people watching. Woo-hoo-hoo! Please share the show if you've not done so already. Massive thank you to all of you who smashed that share button up to now. Typically the people who watch the show regularly, but thank you very much indeed. That's the reason we've got over 100 people watching, so really appreciate the support. Smash the share button, smash the like button, all that good stuff.
Should be thousands.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Well, my son said that's a fact, that it's 93 million miles away.
That's based on a Christian Huygens assumption of Venus having the same radius value as Earth after you assume Earth has the same radius value measured by way of a geometric horizon debunked by the Black Swan that Al-Biruni utilised after measuring Earth flat. Or Sticks and Shadows that used the flat Earth also. Go ahead, Chocolate, sorry.
I was just going to say, I actually had a little giggle when he said that. My son said, that's a fact. Oh, yeah? That's actually funny to me now.
Yeah, scientifically validated too.
Oh, shit.
Which bit's scientifically validated? It's Kepler's third law. That's not science. Even the name suggests that it's and law of nature? No, it isn't. It's a scaling mathematical value that you can apply, but you can't give it actual distances until you know one of the values. Hence the assumption that Venus has the same radius value as Earth, so that you can apply Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion And that gives you the scaling values, and then you get the distance with that assumption. But 93 million miles is just it's based purely on that assumption. That's why we call Venus Earth's twin in the heliocentric model.
Well,
The stars were mapped out millions of years ago, thousands of years ago. You're listening to a bunch of YouTubers. That's what I got.
What, by astrology?
yeah,
By astrology. So if you want to go back and say that people who figured out the patterns of the stars, well, that was the astrologers. Now demonized as Mystic Meg. And you will see a tall, dark stranger in your future. I don't know why that's become a vampire. It's supposed to be Mystic Meg. Shout out to
I
Mike.
don't know what's bothering your.
Shout out to Mike 808 for hitting the super chat. Really appreciate the support. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, I don't know what's bothering your son more, that you're listening to YouTubers, or he can't win you over when arguing with YouTubers.
Oh, the thing is, there's no argument anymore. I think he realizes that. But he can't handle it. He's in pain, scared.
Yeah, there isn't an argument anymore. You're absolutely right. That's where it's got to, which is quite a comfortable position to be in from our perspective. I mean, it doesn't change the levels of ridicule that we receive, but it does alter the, I don't want to say determination that we have. I don't know if it necessarily does affect that, but a comfort level is the only thing I can think of. Knowing full well that no, it's absolutely applied throughout many different genres of life. So life is flat. That's how it is. It doesn't really matter about what anybody says or thinks anymore.
Agreed.
I was listening to you there a few minutes ago talking about the Haversine formula, and just before that, you were talking about how they keep holding on to the globe. But how they actually keep holding on to the globe. And I'm having an extremely difficult time to get people on our side to realize this and realize the argument is that they have to believe that they can get their correct latitude using the geometric horizon of the globe and Polaris, north of the equator line. They have to believe that that is a possibility. And not one of them will answer the question honestly, can I get my correct latitude using the sea horizon, which they claim to be a refracted position, and Polaris at sea with a marine sextant?
No, they can't. No.
But I just, yeah, they can't. But see, there's no, but they can't. Now, see, this is the thing. No, what you said is actually slightly wrong. This is the thing. They want to talk about, you can get your correct latitude, you don't need the horizon. That's what they want to say to me first, right? So I have to specify, no, I specified at sea with a marine sextant north of the equator via Polaris, right? And the sea horizon. The point being is that you can get your correct latitude using the real world sea horizon, a place they say is refracted, which means that their globe is bigger, because it's refracted in size, and it's refracted at a rate of at least 7/6 constantly, right? Because they have to have it like that, and they extend that when it comes to things like the Black Swan to having a radius that's 250,000 miles, statute miles in length, because they have to believe that they can get you're getting your correct latitude from a globe. Every classroom globe, every antique shop globe, they all have the latitudes on them. Where did they get those latitudes? Because we're using what they claim to be a refracted position to get the latitudes, but we get our correct latitude from that refracted position.
No, but that's what I mean. They can't, because of what you've prefaced it with in your description, and I know what's coming. You can't. The horizon needs to be used to establish your horizontal to measure an angle. That's what it's being used for. Now, if it's a refracted horizon, it's a bent line. It's ludicrous, right? They need a straight line. They'll draw a straight line. They'll calculate with the straight line. It's just they've relinquished their straight line. That's their tangent. Back in 2020, nobody's claiming physical geometry. Nobody's claiming we'll see physical geometry. Plan a walk. Nobody's claiming the horizon's Earth curve. What, with a tangent point to it? Yeah, Rufy's doing it. That's why I embarrass him on a daily basis, asking how his geometric horizon's working out for him. Because he hasn't got one. Infinite over our refraction versus standard every single day because there's never no atmosphere in your model. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, would the modus tollens bother them more if it was stated if the horizon is a tangent point, then its distance can be no further than 1.22
Oh, I
times
love
the
it. Oh, I love it just for Rufy. You rattle it off. I cut you off. This is just for you, Rufy, with your geometric tangent point for dip. If the horizon is your tangent point, then every distance to that tangent point can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. And the distance to your tangent point is beyond those geometric limitations you need it to be a tangent point, and it's not. Bye-bye globe geometry. Like we said in 2020, when you told us it was bent. Bye-bye geometry. Globe's dead.
I think though that my point is being missed a little bit. If you go back to the slide you just had on a second ago, it shows that it shows all the shadows working because of parallel light rays on our model, right? It doesn't matter about, within my argument, I know that technically that the refracted means that there's going to be a bent tangent, right? That doesn't work. But the point I'm making is their 7/6 makes their radius 4,618.83 statute miles, as opposed to 3,959. When they show all the observations to Polaris, orthographically, right, within our model, as someone moves from the GP point of Polaris down to their equator, they end up meeting all those points along that, where all the latitudes are. They are all able to account for what the latitude would be. That would be the correct latitude, as the curve of the globe Earth would be just getting in the way, just enough for to get them, let's just say, just the angle between, not that they can, I know they can't have an angle on a curved surface, but the point is that the globe Earth, for the correct latitudes to work, to get your latitude at all, for latitudes to even exist on a globe Earth, then it has to be a 3959 radius. When they're using a refracted horizon and getting the correct latitude, it makes the globe, right, have a radius of 4,618 miles.
No, I definitely haven't missed your point. I totally get it. What you're saying is, in order for the maths to square, they have to have the geometric value be applied. That's how the maths works out, because it's about calculation based on the angles, not based on refracted horizons or refracted terrestrial atmospheric-based refraction, nothing like that. It's just based on the pure maths and what they derived when they measured angles to stars. So when they back calculate it into claim to be physical geometry based on those angles to stars and bending the surface based on the protractor being the surface, you end up with the pure geometric measurements being the only ones that can be applied. Hence Ruhif having to apply them. Well, he hasn't got them. And what you're saying is, if you're going to be using your horizon on a globe in Atmo Day, then it's never going to match the pure geometry mathematics. It can't, it won't, it doesn't. You're screwed, all of you. Further to that, if you're going to claim you've got parallel light rays coming in, and you're going to simultaneously tell us that they're bent at the rate of the atmospheric refraction, 7/6 of the radius, these two things don't work. They are in stark contrast with one another. Again, you are completely screwed. But Brian's overall point is to say that if you're going to apply mathematical values to navigation, you're going to want to be getting it absolutely correct. And the only way you can apply a conversion and have the maths even remotely look correct is if you apply them in the pure geometry. Not with refraction, the thing you've been barking at us that we must abide by for 2 straight years. Yeah, that means you're screwed now, like we told you in 2020. Then you haven't got the geometry and it must be applied in this instance. That's Brian's point.
Could I?
Exactly. Go on, John.
I was going to say, I'll give you the compartmentalized rebuttal to that, which, it'll fall apart upon deeper investigation. But
Lay it on me. Let's have it thick and fast.
All right, here it is. Well, when you talk about the actual distances, we're not talking about refraction. So we're changing the apparent size of Earth, not the actual size.
Refraction
but
as
that's
hell.
incorrect as well.
That's not going to be their rebuttal. I'll tell you why. Because when they talk, I know that we appreciate that all 7/6 of the radius does 7/6 that's terrestrial refraction. What they call refraction does is increases the overall size of Earth. Right? We know that, but they're never going to use that in a response, are they? To get away from the fact that it's actually not really refraction. Because that would be a blatant disclaimer if they ever said that. So no, that is definitely not what they'll do, John.
No, that
I
is
thought
what they do. They say it's optical, that it's not actual.
Yeah, but John, it doesn't matter because the point is, see, what you just said there is not that. If a Glober said that to me, it means that they're not understanding. They're just looking for a way around what I'm saying without understanding what I'm saying.
I take it back. That's definitely what I'll do then, John, based on what Brian just said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it means they won't. It means they don't understand. The angle is between a refracted. Now, besides the fact you can't have an angle on a curved surface, the point is.
I just want to point out, Brian. Sorry to interrupt. Brian's now going to explain what we explained in 2020 to you idiots who believe in a globe. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what's happening. The angle will be between a refracted horizon and Polaris.
I'm just going to stop you right there, Brian. Sorry, you can't get an angle from a refracted horizon because that would mean that the line to it's bent and angles are two straight lines.
Yes, but okay, I'll do it, Bobby. I didn't start that correctly. The angle will be between the reality C horizon and Polaris. We will be taking an angle in reality between that C horizon and Polaris, and then we will do height of white correction to bring the eye line down in a horizontal line with the horizon. And that will give us our exact latitude north of the equator at sea with a marine sextant.
I see.
They have to claim, and that will give us not just our exact and correct latitude. That's why I keep saying correct latitude. So when they claim that horizon that we're using in reality to get our correct latitude is refracted, it completely destroys their whole heliocentric model.
That's
right. The
right.
whole heliocentric model started with their supposed globe's geometric horizon being the horizon used to get your correct latitude.
Yeah, just like we told them in 2020.
So let me get this straight, Brian. What you're saying is like that picture that what do we call it again? Oh, the black swan, where the horizon is supposed to be no more than 1.22 miles away from a 1 foot observer height, but apparently the response that we've gotten all this time is that horizon that's pretty much further than, I guess we could clearly see 10 miles away at the least, that's refracted. So you're saying that they can't get their latitude from a refracted horizon that's supposed to be at 1.2 miles away?
No, not exactly.
No.
What Brian's saying is, so I'm sorry to paraphrase for you, Brian. I'm really sorry, because I want to get this in with a quote. So, in order for the maths to match chocolate, they must be utilising the geometric horizon for the numbers to work. So, in other words, when they look at the horizon, Brian's saying, you're out at sea, you're looking at the horizon, right? That must be a globe geometric horizon if the maths are going to work. And I quote, AB Science, we are not going to see the geometric horizon, end quote. Now, given that we are not going to see the absolutely essential and required for the maths to work geometric horizon, they are, quote, screwed.
That's correct. They hung themselves.
I'll make it even better, because this is something I said within one of my recent videos. Chocolate. The horizon we see in the Black Swan photos, right? Let's just, even the newest one from BLMSB 69, where he's seen an horizon 31 miles away from a 1.5 foot observer height. Even that one, if you can see Polaris over that and you're at sea, then you can get your correct latitude using that horizon. Now, that's impossible. That's an impossibility if they're claiming, within their model, not in reality, within their model, if they're claiming that's a refracted horizon, then that completely annihilates their model. Because me, you, Nathan, John, Neil, anyone here can get the correct latitude between that horizon and Polaris. Correct latitude. No mistake.
Wow, they're
At
done.
sea with a marine sextant. If that's refracted, if that's a refracted horizon, then it's impossible for them to ever get any, the globe can't exist. That's basically it. If the horizon is refracted, the globe can't exist. Because all the globe's mathematics are based off of the angle between their geometric horizon and Polaris, giving them latitude lines. You look at every single classroom globe or antique shop globe, they all have the latitude lines all going down along them. Where do they get them from? If the horizon is refracted and you're getting your correct latitude from that, that means you're correct. Basically, what they're stating is the correct latitude is coming from a refracted position. So there's no geometry then. Their geometry is out the window. There isn't anything. You can get your correct latitude from the Black Swan horizon any day of the week, proving that the horizon is just an optical location. Once again, proving it.
They're saying the most recent J. Tolan Media Black Swan is 30 plus miles away, and it's at 1 point. Did you say it was at 1.5 feet? Does that mean it's 1.22 times 1.22? So the horizon should be less than a mile and a half away.
Yeah, BLMSB 69. The most recent one, it was from a 1.5. I think he even brought it down to a 1 foot, and you could still see the horizon 31 miles away.
So it's between
and a Kappa Island.
So the globe Earth geometric physical limitation, the hill that should be in the way according to globe Earth claims, should be between a mile and a half away on those two elevations. So the horizon should be just about, let's say, at the most 2 miles, at the absolute most. Well, then he's got it, at 30 plus miles. This is just typical Black Swan stuff. They're getting more and more common.
I have loads of them.
Just one sec. Shout out Godzilla 37. It says, the flat Earth finally stood long enough for me to type this. What? The Earth finally stood still long enough for me to type this. Gotcha. Thought it would never stop spinning. Good morning. Thank you for the super chat, Godzilla. Really appreciate the support. Sorry, Brian. Go ahead. Hope I haven't disturbed your flow too much.
No. Sorry, I stepped in on the super chat. No, it means that according to Ruhif and all the rest of them, the horizon is 29 miles past over 29 miles past where it can be geometrically on a globe. And that's even including their 7/6R.
So when they're navigating and they require their geometric values to match with their geometric mathematics that they're assuming by way of all wangling in dip correction, then again, they're just showing again and again and again that they're screwed. Again, this comes back to how can they possibly believe this? If you've got the Haversine formula showing how you're converting a flat plane, and the math's never stacking up unless you've got a physical hill in the way, which we haven't. How do you square that circle as a globe-believing muppet? I just don't get it. I've got to be honest. It's just baffling to me, and it's just one of those little follies. My intrigue it's not really that important, but it's just like Neil, you kind of ejaculate into a conversation about it because you go, well, why the hell would you still believe this nonsense? Globe's nonsense. It's silly.
Well, John is right when he says compartmentalization, because that's what has to go on with them. They have to compartmentalize.
Hold on a second.
Compartmentalization or compartmentalize. Yeah, they have to compartmentalize it.
Yeah, but hold on. John faced the same thing, but when John saw that Earth could not be measured, he turned. There's no excuse. They're religiotards. When you fight this hard, you're fighting for a religion.
John has intellectual honesty and integrity.
That's true.
They don't.
There you go. Because they're religious.
Or a desire to compartmentalize it. Like you say, when you gave the example with virus, he or as a different argument? Well, obviously, if I'm arguing for eclipses and I need to claim that light's going to converge and diverge and, that's how the eclipses work on a globe, then that's so be it. Okay, but what about when you describe the light coming in parallel? Well, that's a different argument. The light comes in parallel when I need it to come in parallel to explain shadows. Okay, so the light's coming in parallel. Yeah, definitely. Always parallel, without exception. Okay, so why is this horizon beyond the limitations of your geometry then? Well, because the light's bending. So it's bending. Yeah, so the horizon's not where it's supposed to be because the light bent into your eye. Well, how do you get the maths of celestial navigation to work? If the light's bending and you haven't got a geometric horizon, then your maths don't work on a globe. Well, because in that instance, it's just optical. How do these people live without being in tremendous mental pain?
Well, you mean optical, like what we've been saying in the first place. Like what?
What, like not geometric?
Yeah.
I cornered Sean Hawkins with that question there last night because he had avoided the question about the correct latitude using what he would claim to be a refracted horizon. And he tried to say, this is what he tried to claim, they always add in, refraction is added in with the dip correction and all this other nonsense he started coming in, right? There's no 7/6R anywhere in the Nautical Almanacs. No corrections for 7/6R.
He's not a good example. No, you can't use Sean Hawkins. He'll just lie his way out of these sort of problems. Oh, well, they used refraction in the dip correction. No, they don't, you bloody liar. Just lie his way out of it. It's not a good example. Or maybe he's the perfect example.
Yeah, that's my point. He's perfect for it, because that is what they're going to say. They're going to start wanting to have a talk about whether they use refraction or not within the dip correction, within celestial navigation. And you end up having to then explain, no, there's no dip correction for us. There's no 7/6R added anywhere else. And there isn't 7/6R referenced anywhere in the Nautical Almanacs. The correction is only below 20 degrees. It's celestial refraction, not a refraction could do with the horizon or anything like that. And that's the thing. And so I pulled them on. I said, no, you're not hijacking reality here, because that's what they do. They're little reality hijackers. You're not hijacking reality. You're not getting away with it. Answer the question. And he did what the rest of them did. He wanted to talk about everything but answer the question.
Yeah, Brian. Don't step in on my super chat, says Godzilla37 from the super chat. Really appreciate the support. Thank you very much, Godzilla37.
Brian, if you go to Gem Pandas right now, all of them, there's probably about 50 of them that don't listen to a word or ignore everything that's being said here.
Okay, that's nice.
Let them. Who cares?
But they're not a good example. That's kind of a contradiction in terms, right? So you're saying that they don't listen to us. What, they consciously don't listen? No. Somebody in Tahiti having a massage, they're not listening to me, right? There's a big distinction between that. No, we're gonna tell you we're not listening. What? That's like the disruptive kid in the class. He's still in the class.
Well, they're refusing to comprehend it because it's very, very painful.
There you go. There it is. Refusing to comprehend it. That's different. Not listening. Oh, right. So you've got your fingers in the ears and you're going, la, 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 la. No, the horizon's Earth curve. La, 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 la. Housekeeping questions are stupid. Okay. Well, good for you. Have a nice life.
Well, they shouldn't ignore the elevation angle question. That's how they built their globe. I mean, you'd think they would.
I knew you were coming with that.
Let's do a bit more housekeeping. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Oh, that was brought up at the table. Oh, that was definitely brought up at the table at my sister-in-law's house yesterday. Gravity.
What's that?
You don't hear much about that these days.
Well, I explained the relative density to them. They can understand that. I said, if Newton's tree was in the water, the apple would not have hit him in the head. It would have floated up and hit him in the balls.
Yeah, so Italian. Relative disequilibrium described by a tree floating up from a flooded lake to hit you in the balls.
I got that from Anthony.
From Anthony?
Not the hitting the balls part.
That sounds like something Anthony would say, all right.
No,
Not
but
hitting him in the balls, but
that's
the tree.
definitely very
Newton's tree.
Italian.
I dropped my phone and I said, you see, my phone is too heavy for the air. It's all medium based.
And then I dropped my helium balloon. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, and I tell you, Paula put something in, I think it was the War Room the other night, and I looked at it. It was last night. And there was something to do with some kind of scientific nonsense from astrophysics about, I don't know, black holes or whatever nonsense. And in the comments was very interesting. You had a load of people saying, this is a load of nonsense. I mean, I would say 80% of the comments were laughing at it and saying this is nonsense. And 10% of the comments were like, I don't know about all this. And then there was 10% of the comments who were agreeable. That's a sign of the times. And that's what she said. She said, the comments section is interesting.
This is from a video that isn't hers?
It was an article of some kind, I think. It was an article of some kind where there was all this nonsense being claimed. It's astrophysics nonsense. And the comment section, and I'm not saying they were all flat earthers, it was just the comment section was just like people saying, this is rubbish. Like, you know what I mean? They were pulling it apart. They were making a joke out of it. Like it was like this same article 7-8 years ago, people would have been applauding it. So it was interesting.
Maybe the tides are turning. I mean, who's it going to please, though? Who's it going to serve? If everyone woke up tomorrow and was a flat earther because the government told you that it was, would it serve our ends? What are our ends in that regard? Other than keeping Neil happy, I mean, what would it really serve? What I mean by that, Brian, is as a result of you reading those articles, that obviously makes you appreciate that a lot more people realise the nonsensical nature of gravity because they're happy to criticise it in the comments below some article. Does that improve things? I mean, I'm being very sceptical, aren't I?
So some people are waiting for that, though. Remember, Don? He came here and literally said that. Like, I'm waiting. Like, I'll be waiting for the news to say that, to tell me that.
Yep.
I don't need you guys. When it's consensus, then it'll make sense to me, and I'll accept it. Until then, I'm not accepting shit.
Isn't that the God argument? When they say, well, it's God, it's the same thing. It's just they have a different God than what the other person does.
What, the Big Bang? I just want to ask the opinion of the guys in Discord. I've taken a whole bunch of you off mute, just because it's been the general topic of today's show. Are any of you on the fence or waiting to be a bit more vocal publicly, even if you are genuinely a flat earther, for that newsreel to roll, or for that general consensus view to be very much the prevalent worldview before you'll disseminate that information to people around you? Or what's the score? Any of you on the fence or not vocal? Waiting to be vocal? Yes, Nathan, you really did pull this Discord.
But why would you have to be vocal if it comes on the news? Yeah, the news says it, so it's true.
I think that's a cop-out. I think that's something someone says to get past the point of concession.
Their fear?
Oh, in other words, oh, right, you've beaten me in this argument. I don't have a better one to confront you with, but I'm not going to concede. I'll say I'll concede when everybody else concedes.
Yeah, basically it's appealing to authority, but it's when authority is using baseless assertions.
No, that's appeal to consensus, isn't it?
It's both, it can be either, but yeah, in this instance, if the authority you're looking to is the word of the people, typically you'd call that an appeal to consensus. But it is also an appeal to authority just because the person we're talking to is not very bright. So his authority is anything anybody says that's not him.
Well, Nathan, I'm not waiting to be vocal. That's why I've started the YouTube channel. Plug it, the hammer. Check it out.
Oh, okay.
Hammer.
Plug your channel.
Is it the hammer or
What's your
the
channel
hammer?
about? You feel
It's
free.
about the topic. It's a little more. It's a little more artistic view of the topic, a little more loose, but we're with the same ideals in mind that you hold as far as the scientific values.
Oh, cool. So it's a new endeavor on YouTube, right? And your channel's called Catchy
Right now,
ZZ Hammer.
yeah. Right now, it's just called the hammer.
Oh, the
Probably
Hammer.
going to be difficult. Yeah, it's probably going to be difficult for people to find because there's a lot of other stuff that blocks you from finding it. I could post like a link or something.
Yeah,
Type
well,
actually, if you type the title Sin as in SIN and Don and then the hammer, all one word there in YouTube, it should be the first result that comes up.
post a link in Discord, and hopefully, if you can do it in the next 60 seconds, somebody can post it in the live chat. And hopefully,
Yeah, I'll grab it. Hold on.
Can somebody go to the Discord server and grab this link and stick it in the live chat? I'm looking at you, Arwin. You there, Arwin? If I don't get this admin sorted, you're not going to get your plug. Blame Arwin. You there, Arwin?
That'll happen at some point.
You there,
And
Arwin? Hold on one sec. Just one sec.
crap.
Just one sec. You
Oh,
there,
no
Arwin? We
Where,
can't hear
where
you.
is it? In the main chat? Where did you put it? Hammer? Where did you put
I
that?
haven't grabbed it. I haven't grabbed it yet. I apologize. I thought I had it. I got to get it from YouTube itself. Hold on. I apologize.
All right.
That'll be the work of but a moment. You're going to post it in the main chat, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Hopefully Chocolate will get it to it. I don't mind keeping the live show a little bit longer. Just to give you a plug. Why not? I'm that kind of guy.
I know, you're so kind.
I am.
They say all these things about how rude you are. And how
It's not true what they
unkind
say
you
about
are,
me, eh?
Nathan.
Let me know when you post it, bro.
Speaking of that, somebody contacted me about, not exactly about the computer. Somebody said they needed a mic. And they're like, you've got a Yeti that you're giving away. Can you send it me? I'll pay for the postage. I was like, just give me your address. I'll just post it to you. So if that person hasn't read their email, you know you are.
This Bob the Science guy's going around recently in Discord saying that, saying some bad things about you.
That's okay. That's typical. I don't mind.
Bob the fallacy
It doesn't
guy.
bother me in the slightest. In fact, couldn't care less. Saying bad
It's
things
up in
about
there,
me.
Chocolate.
Oh,
Sorry.
no.
What's he saying?
Sure.
Oh, don't
No,
ask.
my boy.
Let's
my
not
boy
lose his
No
plug.
Tank's
Hold on,
got it.
Chocolate. You on the case? Did he post it?
Yeah, my boy No Tank's got me at 1 after the hour there.
Okay. Can someone stick it in the live stream chat? And then I can round this show out and ask people to stay tuned if they're watching on an after show.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
We can,
Come on,
Arwin. Hooray!
Quick.
I had to restart, so what was the question?
There wasn't a specific question. We just needed a link to be sent from Discord to the live chat. I'm just waiting to see it pop up on the live chat. And when it does, I'll round out the show.
Oh, okay.
Or round out the live show, at least.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
See what we do for you, the hammer? We're with you. As long as you stay away from Ether.
There's no caveats.
Uh-oh.
Do whatever you like.
Well,
Don't care. Right, hopefully while Chocolate's digging out the link, I'm going to say with that, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, hit the thanks button after the fact, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Or it's idolatry. You're worshipping something that you cannot prove it exists, but yet you insist.
That's correct. And you punt that shit everywhere you go.
You hear that, Hammer? He said, "Yeah, hey, as long as you don't talk about the ether,
Did somebody get the
take
link
you
in the
under our
chat?
wing."
Oh, I thought Chocolate was going to get the link in the chat before we ended
He
the live
did.
show.
In Master B.
It's in Master B.
No, in the live stream.
Live stream, I heard that too.
Oh, okay, I'll
Drop
post
the ball, Choco.
God, if you want anything doing.
Nathan, did you hear the after show talk or not?
Let me just get this in the live
I
stream.
just posted it.
Oh, thank you, Arwin. You beat me to it.
Arvin, do you mind
Thank you for-
repeating what you said
Just one
about
second.
the
Just 1
video?
second. Thank you for getting it. Thank you for posting it, Chocolate, in all seriousness. Thank you very much.
Yeah, repeat that, Arwen.
Hello, Earth to Nathan.
Yes.
Go ahead, Arvin. Say what you said about that video.
That's how I feel when I do it. That's how I feel. You make your point,
Well,
you
when you-
interrupt, you're stern, you're forceful, then you pass the next man.
I'll do it.
Next man
I'll
lets
do
you
it.
down. Tumbleweeds.
I'll do it. Maybe something.
I'm
happens.
sorry, I was confused with freaking Discord. I was unmuting myself there, realizing I'm not even in the panel there. So,
See, patience is a virtue, Nathan.
right. So, what's the question about what I said about
Oh,
belief in
forget it,
ether?
Arwin. The moment's
I
passed.
said
You've
the
missed all of the
video
humour
that
in it.
chocolate-
It's just a waste of time.
You rumpusing me, Nathan.
Arwin. I was rumpusing Arwin.
He's been doing that a lot lately, Ken. He's
What?
been missing you a lot.
Arwen
I'm sorry, I
saw
had to
the
restart
link.
my entire computer, so I'm a little
Oh
disoriented
gosh,
here.
Arwen, let me ask you the question, put it in context. The video link that Chocolate put in, what did you say about it?
Well, that it's about ether.
Thank
I
you.
didn't actually watch the video. I just noticed the title, ether, immediately. So,
Well,
and
that
then
doesn't mean against. It's how do you know he's for it or against it if you haven't watched it?
because he titled it ether, 2 videos.
Okay. Well, it's ether or ether or. I mean, you haven't watched it, so what's his position?
Yeah, Hammer, where do you stand?
Well, if he would
no, he's
have
here.
some fair criticism or like
Oh, no, you
good
haven't
analysis,
watched
then
it.
you would read that out of the title.
Oh gosh, Arwen, he's in Discord. He'll answer for himself. Hammer, what position do you have on ether?
And a multitude of other things, but he'll
First
take
of all-
Einstein's word for ether.
He had a misapplication of Einstein.
Oh my gosh, is Hammer talking or someone else is talking?
It's hammer time.
I think they were already having a discussion, and then Nathan linked us both. 'Cause he
No.
was
I
mid-sentence
just
when
pressed
he
play on the
started.
video just to mess with you. Because I knew it would be him talking on it.
Hammer, your video link is titled Ether. 2 of them, Ether. Does that mean you believe in ether or what? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Can you just give us a quick précis of the video so we don't have to watch it?
It's more allowing them to respond, because some of the guys that were on your show were saying that they didn't get a chance to fully respond. So I was kind of just giving them
You're joking.
the
Yeah, I mean,
opportunity to kind of
hold on. I'm sorry. I've got to
air.
deal with that straight away. I'm sorry to cut you off after you've only just made one statement.
Uh-huh.
They're saying they don't get their chance to speak.
That's a baller tactic.
Like the ballers
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. Yep.
I love it.
Right. So you're giving them more room to chant.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah,
Fair
and the second video I'm kind of upset about because I wrote up in the comment, it was an hour-long video. I think I hit the button twice when I hit stop stream. So the whole thing didn't come through. I had a great ending for it. But if you watch that, you can see, like, I'm sticking to the point, like, and it actually helped me to clear up, like, what the difference is. Although I kind of knew it, like, why you guys don't allow it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying don't allow it. There's no scientific evidence for it. They admit it. They're basically saying in the video, the energy comes from a portal that it disappears into some other reality. You know what I mean? There's no scientific evidence for it. So it's kind of highlighted in the video, but no, it doesn't mean that I'm an ether believer. And I clarify that. I clarified
Mine
that
is-
in the 15 minutes that got
Hang
cut
on.
out.
Thank you, Hammer. That's why you go to the source.
I go to the source when I'm hungry.
Okie dokie then.
What?
I was going to try to throw in a quip about informational sciences and how do you get to the source there, but it just seems inappropriate now.
It was too highbrow
Informational
for the audience
sciences?
anyway.
Are you very manipulating the science in order to establish the cause of the information?
That Gem Panther holding a globe?
No, that's not informational sciences are like, the sciences that deal with data and the scientific method.
So it is exactly what I just described.
Data and the scientific method?
I mean, what are you going to vary and manipulate about the data in order to establish its cause?
Well, water boiling, you take that in, you see that phenomenon, your eyes witness it. That's visual information that is being processed. So then you manipulate the heat, which heat is something you can feel, right? That's
Okay.
data.
But how does any of
being
that
transmitted to you? Well,
How
hold
does
on.
any of that relate to the actual method, though? This is just like description of.
He's trying to
Can you
answer
let him
you,
make his
Arwen.
point, man?
He's
What the
trying to
hell?
answer you, Arwen. You gotta be patient.
And you can manipulate the temperature. You can increase the heat and cause the water to boil.
Okay, so you're not actually manipulating the assumed to be phenomenon of the information scientifically. So it isn't science.
What?
How are you manipulating information, the substance
I
of
didn't claim to be
information
manipulating
scientifically?
information. I didn't claim to be.
That he
Yeah,
manipulated
you did. You said information sciences. So, okay, where
So
is
instead
this
of
scientific
assuming,
experiment
instead of
concerning
just
information?
assuming
Now
what
you're
he's
roasting
saying,
me, Chocolate.
yes, I am. Instead
Yeah,
of
thanks.
assuming, yeah, exactly. Instead of assuming what he's saying, why don't you listen to what he's saying first? How about that? Let's try that. Thanks.
Just going by the word. Nathan does this every time. How I'm doing it.
Yeah, but Nathan will let him explain what he means first, right?
No, he doesn't. He
Oh, God,
immediately
don't make this about me,
steamrolls
Alvin.
you and
Just-
make sure you can't finish your sentence.
Can you not make this about
That's
me,
what Nathan
please?
does, and I'm perfectly
Are we
Can you not make
talking
this
to
about
a
me?
Grover
Thank
or are
you.
we talking to John? Exactly.
Does it matter?
Yes,
No.
it does actually.
No. When I do it, he
No.
does it with me too. Doesn't matter whether I'm a glober or not.
Can I ask a question, Nathan, about why certain used to be flat Earth topic type of channels are now all about ether? It's as if they've forgotten the reason of their existence, which was flat Earth. Why are they moving over to ether?
I'll
I
answer
don't
that, Tent, even though my name is not Nathan.
I don't know.
Actually, you sound just like Nathan.
I don't know,
Go
but I'm
ahead,
happy for Brian to answer. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, because the whole agenda, for people who are long-term ether people, let's just say like Bob Nodell, the whole agenda is to get the ether out there. Flat Earth is just a stepping stone to that. That's why in the documentary in 2018, Bob Nodell introduced his gyro drift claim. The only reason he brought that out within that documentary was to start shoehorning in the ether. The ether is the most important thing to these people, not the geometry of the Earth. It's the ether. It's all based on the ether, which all comes back to general relativity, right? Anyway, it's all nonsense. But the point is that it's all based on the ether. So that's why Bob Nodell started speaking about an apparent drift within a fiber optic gyroscope in the documentary in 2018. It's like, Why is he saying this nonsense? Why is he saying this? The bowler is going to have a field day. Yeah. No, he's going to have a field day. Because he wants that out there so he can start making ether claims.
That's
and
correct.
The rest of the people,
It's their
the rest
God,
of the
isn't
people,
it? Literally.
Yeah.
How can you get into
following
Bob's
either. Not all
mind
of
and
them.
know why he introduced that?
Couldn't
He
agree more.
introduced that because that's what they observed in the interferometry data.
Did they?
What did they
How can
observe?
you say it's so
Hold
he
on.
can
Number one.
introduce
Hold on, Nathan. Number
ether?
one. Did they observe that? I've not actually seen that.
You have to
You
go
what I was asking?
to what's his name? There, it's not actually Bob's gyro. It's somebody else. And he has it on
Mike
his
Kavanagh.
YouTube, all the data that he collected, and he records his computer screen from the ring laser gyro.
It was a fiber optic
Somebody
gyro.
should know his name.
Hold on.
Was he graphing that data?
Mike Kavanagh.
Just one second. Just one second. You're saying that. What? Break it down for me. Mike Kavanagh shows his computer screen showing that gyroscopes aren't fit for purpose in planes.
The fiber optic gyro.
They took
I'm asking
the
that Nathan
gyro
guy.
to
Hold on one
different
second, Brian.
elevations on the Earth, and it wasn't Mark Kavanagh. Oh, I should know the name of the guy.
The name's
He
not
helped
important.
organize the.
Hold on, Brian. Just the name's not important. Just we've got a principle that's claimed in terms of what gyroscopes are used for, right? They remain rigid in space, so you can utilize that for an aeroplane, right? So it holds the plane
Absolutely
rigid in terms of its dimensionality in free space. And if you lose the visual horizon or lose control of the plane and you're spinning out of control, you can look down at that instrument and rely upon it to be fixed in space. Now,
rigid.
Sure, but
rigid. I'm nearly done.
I mean,
I'm nearly
what are
done.
your
I'm
sources on the?
nearly done. Thank you. I've only just explained the basic principles of a gyro. Thank you. However, you're saying that this demonstration by Mike Kavanagh or whoever shows that gyros are not fit for purpose. They drift at 15 degrees an hour, rendering all gyroscopes on all planes useless. Because they're not remaining fixed in space, they're drifting at a rate of 15 degrees an hour, then they're useless.
The interferometry of the ring laser gyros do not show a constant rate of rotation. They demonstrated with the one that they purchased that it shows different rates at different elevations, and they surmised from that.
Hold on, stop a second before you.
I guess.
Stop. Before we go on to what they've surmised, you're saying that this specific gadget did not behave like all the gadgets used in aircraft and gyroscopic motion in general, remaining fixed in space. This one didn't do that. This one did something different.
Well, that was my question to you. What is your source on how ring laser gyros function?
Stop. I'm not making any claims about ring laser gyros. I'm summarizing what you're telling me. Right? I know what a gyro is, regardless of whether it's a ring laser gyro or not. In this case, fiber optic gyro. Okay. I'm asking you.
You can't conflate the both.
My bad.
You can't conflate the two.
My bad. I'm asking you if this one didn't do what all the others do. If it's defective or not. Did it display drift at 15 degrees an hour where the other ones don't? Because they'd be useless if they did. I'm asking you that.
I'm not. You're assuming that they're useless if they show drift.
Right, let me just get it clear with you one more time, as we already did this once. Gyroscopic usefulness is that it remains fixed, rigid in space. Correct?
Absolutely.
If it drifts at a rate of 15 degrees an hour, then its reference to the plane would show it's drifted around its gyro with the plane attached to that gyro cage at 15 degrees an hour. Right, that's not useful for avionics. Is that clear? Or are you disagreeing with that very absolute fact that I've just stated?
With
Stop!
That because you
Stop!
Don't have any
Stop!
sources for
I'll ask my question
showing
concisely before you start talking through me. Do you disagree with that principle of avionics or not? It must remain rigid in fixed space for it to be useful for flying.
I'm asking, where is your source?
Why are you asking? I'm not making a claim with gyros and ether. You are. And Bob is. Now, if you're saying that this drifts where the other ones don't, then it's defective. I'm trying to establish if it's defective or not. If the other ones do drift,
is defective and all
Stop blabbering.
Yeah, he won't. He can sense the end is nigh, so he needs to talk through the concise questions he's being asked.
You're claiming that
I'm not claiming anything, dickhead. Stop repurposing and refashioning my questions into something that I'm claiming I'm not. I'm not claiming anything. I'm detailing facts of what gyros do. They remain fixed in space. That's factual. Their usefulness is because of that fact. If they moved around in the cage at 15 degrees an hour, they wouldn't be useful. That's a fact. I'm not asking or postulating anything. That's a fact.
In a ring laser gyroscope, there's no cage. What are you talking about?
Oh, so it's drifting because the gyro itself is drifting then. Again, violating its usefulness. So it's not that the cage drifting around the gyro in the ring laser gyro or fiber optic gyro, it's that it's not remaining fixed in space at all. So totally useless then.
That's what I'm saying. None of us.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not what you're saying. You're saying he's proving ether drift with this piece of shit that sounds defective. And I'm saying if it's defective and drifting, it's not useful.
I'm pretty sure it's in the instruction manual to check whether it drifts or not, and if it does, to make sure that it stops doing that, because it won't work.
It's not supposed to do that. That's my point. If it's showing 15 degrees an hour drift, it's faulty.
You're defective because you don't like the ether idea.
Sorry, ether idea. Does this show drift where other gyros don't? In other words, does it show something that the other ones, which are utilizing its useful property, there's him interrupting the concise question again. The end is nigh, isn't it, Nathan? That's why you need to interrupt this concise question about how useful this tool would be. If it drifts at 15 degrees an hour, precisely, pray tell, what could this be used for in practical application? A gyro that drifts at 15 degrees an hour? Because it sounds like a defective gyro that's not useful for anything. But perhaps you can tell me where it's useful, given that it drifts.
Over me. I'm just trying to...
Do it again, dickhead, and I will remove you from this call. You either listen to what I say without talking through me, or I kick you out. That's your choice. Don't bleat and moan about how I'm talking through you. I'll be the one asking the questions. Is this useful? How is a ring laser or fiber optic gyro that drifts at 15 degrees an hour practically useful? How is it applied with that drift utilized or in effect when it's being used? Tell me that.
I don't know the answer to that.
So this is a gizmo that sounds faulty because it doesn't do what gyros do to be useful. It doesn't do that. And you're not telling me about any practical application for this 20-gram piece of shit that's faulty. Because it doesn't have a practical application as far as you're aware. Now, if you can show me that you can put a drifting gyro into practical application, then I might take this seriously. Or consider why this gizmo that sounds faulty does what it does. It's not a natural phenomena, though. It's just a gizmo, a man-made gadget that sounds like it's broken.
Well, it's like the same thing with QE claiming that his...
We're not talking about QE, we're talking about drifting gyros. And if they're drifting, they're broken because they're not useful anymore. And if your drifting gyro is claimed to be proving ether, then it's not a natural phenomena. It's not like when QE does anything. It's like when you guys claim you've got a natural phenomena because you look at a broken gadget.
Why is it?
Well, is it a natural phenomena to look up in the sky and see the stars move?
Oh, really? And so you think that this natural phenomena of the stars movement has been scienced with this gadget, do you?
All I'm doing is looking at the...
All you're doing is ignoring me. Do you think that the sky rotation, the movement that we observe in the stars, has been scienced with this ring laser or fiber optic gyro? Is that what you think?
Is science observable?
Sorry, do you ask me what science is, or ask me whether or not the fiber optic gyro has scienced the stars' movements?
That's a good question.
Because the answer's no. The answer is definitely not science. So why would you be inferring or implying in any way that this faulty gadget is somehow scientifically validating the ether and the star movement when that is definitely not what it's doing?
Well, you have no evidence or...
Sorry, I'm not claiming anything. I don't need evidence. I don't need any evidence for anything. I'm not claiming anything. You're claiming ether.
That his gyro is...
I don't need any evidence. Don't tell me what I'm not providing evidence for. ether idiot.
You're claiming his.
I'm not claiming anything.
What's your proof of that?
Proof of what? I'm not claiming anything. You're defending ether, you stupid idiot.
No,
Have you forgotten where you are and what you're claiming? Your claim's ether. I'm not claiming anything. Let's not get lost in what you have failed to prove that you are claiming. Your ether, your claim, I don't need to evidence anything.
I'd keep visiting, but I've got to bring my daughter to the sitter. But
Okay, bye-bye, Dumbo. Take your daughter to the sitter. Meanwhile, you haven't got any science for ether, and this faulty gadget that drifts where gyros should remain fixed in space to be useful isn't proving jack, and certainly isn't science. Well done, goodbye.
This is why it triggers me, Chocolate. This is why I get annoyed with it. Numpties like this.
Well, if you could use the data from that and plot it over a graph through time, where time is 90 degrees to space, then you could develop a medium conceptually. We could call it space-time. We could call it ether, either one. But I wonder if that's what he was showing on his computer.
But that's what they're trying to get.
I was trying to say something. Ron, you want to go first?
No, thank you. We're before me. Go on, go ahead.
All right. Well, Nathan had him from the beginning. Nathan says, do you agree that it's a gyros for rigidity in space? So that airplanes, if they are in bad weather and they can't see, they can, correct their flight. He agreed to that. And then it came to this ring laser gyro. Now, all the other gyros that work never have been given a label. See this gyro? It's working, but it's also proving ether. See this gyro? It's working, but it's also proving ether. You'll never find that anywhere. But I just realized that all the broken gyros get retired to the ether junkyard because they prove ether.
I would just send the gyro back to the manufacturer.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to establish when he kept on rumpusing me. It's like, do you understand that the useful property that this gyro is supposed to exhibit, you're claiming this isn't being exhibited in this example? It's not remaining rigid. It's drifting at 15 degrees an hour. Oh, no, it's not the cage that's drifting. Oh, so this gyro isn't a gyro. It's not remaining fixed in space. The gyro itself's drifting at 15 degrees an hour, making it utterly useless and not a gyro. Oh, no, I'm just talking about how you're not providing me with evidence. That's what I get. I'm not providing evidence for what? I'm not making any claims. I'm shitting on your ether. There has no evidence that you claim it's pseudo-scientific when you start posing it as science and then questioning me about how science works. It's a bloody outrage. I'm not claiming any science here. You try to infer you've got some for your stupid ether that is a direct juxtaposition between bloody counter space and dark matter. That's all you've got. You've just got some used up old heliocentric trash.
You know what's going on? I researched about the gyro compass many years ago now, and I obviously had to learn about both the mechanical gyro compass and the fiber optic gyro compass, because in airplanes they use ring laser gyros, but in gyro compasses, the likes of Sperry and those companies, they put fiber optic gyros in. And the thing about both the ring laser and the fiber optic gyro is once you turn them on, they take a certain amount of time before they're at the correct RPMs or whatever to be used. Now, with the fiber optic gyro in the gyro compass, it takes at least half an hour, right? Between half an hour and 45 minutes, something like that, but I think it's around half an hour for it to be able to be used. Whereas the mechanical one takes 4 hours before it can be used. So you have to turn them on and give it that length of time before you can use them, right? Now, if you don't give them that amount of time, they will drift. There will be issues with the fiber optic and the mechanical if you don't give them enough time to get to where they need to go, get to where they need to get to be used. So I know that they use gyro compasses on ships because they hold north and are not affected by magnetism. Now, why would Sperry be making fiber optic gyros, using fiber optic gyros within their gyro compasses, if those fiber optic gyros, because that's the one that was used, that's the one Bob was talking about. It wasn't a ring laser gyro; it was a fiber optic gyro that they claimed the drift was shown in. Why would Sperry be making gyro compasses with fiber optic gyros in them that are going to drift all over the place?
They
And
wouldn't.
why would Honey?
It belies their usefulness, doesn't it, Brian?
Yeah, it's exactly. It would make them completely obsolete. The same with Honeywell making the ring laser gyro. Why would Honeywell make ring laser gyros, put them into airplanes, and then they drift all over the place? They wouldn't be using them if they did.
Right. So if you've done 20 grand on something and it starts drifting, and the general property and principle is that it won't do that, send it back because it's broken. Because it's just a gadget.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, obviously it's not proving anything scientifically either way anyway. It's just a man-made gizmo. But, you know, if you were hoping or pinning any sort of sincere hopes on it providing you with science, obviously we'll dash those now. But if you just wanted it to use as a tool for something, and it doesn't remain fixed in space, then it's not a gyro.
Is there any way that this can be sort of like a reverse Coriolis, where they're placing you on the inertial plane, and then they're saying there's a non-inertial turning reference frame above you, which would still give the same problems?
No, they're not.
Since we don't observe drift.
No, I know what you're trying to say because it seems that way because there's Coriolis used. What they're actually doing is repurposing the affirming the consequent. If P, then QQ, therefore P. If the Earth's a sphere and it's turning, then we'll observe Coriolis effect. We observe Coriolis effect, therefore we're turning. Now, that assumption is then repurposed into if we have ether, as opposed to a turning Earth, then we'll observe the star rotation at 15 degrees an hour. Or, in this instance, we'll explain the star rotation at 15 degrees an hour because of the drift observed in my gadget. Drift observed in my gadget that shouldn't be showing it, therefore ether drift. So they just repurpose the if P then QQ therefore P statement and change it from globe turn to ether drift. That's all they do.
Right, but the same problem then arises that the globers have when we don't ever observe it.
Right.
Now, Nathan, if you go to Master B and mystery solved.
What's this?
I'd like to point out that if you take 15, multiply it by 24 hours, 15 degrees multiplied by 24 hours, it's a 360-degree circle that the sun makes. I don't know what I mean.
Yeah, we're well aware of
that. Got lost.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, hence the same with it dropping at 1 degree towards the horizon. All of these things are directly connected. What are these? Broken gyros. A lot of them.
Yeah, broken gyros taking up counter space. Mystery solved. Get my drift?
Boom.
Are we still talking about gyros?
We were.
Well, I was just saying there must be a tolerance, even if you do everything correctly. There must be some tolerance. It might be very slight, but I'm just interested to know what the tolerance is.
No, they shouldn't drift at all.
Like for a chronometer, you have to have what days at sea you've been at, so you can adjust for any loss of seconds.
I mean, I can only go by examples that I've actually seen, and I've seen people back in 2015, 16, spinning up mechanical gyros, balancing them, and then watching them not drift for hours and hours on end.
I think the question still stands, right? What is it used for?
A gyro.
I haven't heard an answer the last half hour. You've been asking.
Voting.
Hold on. I think he's reaffirming a point that I made. So you're saying the question hasn't been answered in regards to me saying, if you've got a drifting fiber optic gyro, what's its useful application?
Mm-hmm. Well, as long as you know the drift, you can calculate for that. You can make allowance for that.
No. Take it back to the manufacturer. If you look at how they use gyros in boat stabilization, they turn it on, like Brian says, and it's in a vacuum. So it's built in a vacuum sealed container. And it's got to get to about, the smaller ones get to about 20,000 revolutions. And if you look at the boats that have the gyro for stabilization and the boats prior to the fitting, you could see how the waves of the ocean are making a rock. So what they do is they turn it on while they're at calm water at the dock. Once it gets to its 20,000 RPMs, then they go out and it's not missing a beat, or else they would come back and say, you gave me a bad gyro.
I would just like to know the official tolerance for the light ones. So if it's so small it wouldn't make any difference, then we can tell people that. But if we don't know, it's all up in the air, isn't it?
Well, you have pilots who come back alive. So the tolerance, if there is any, it can't be much because they'd be dead if it wasn't working.
Plus, you've got a three-dimensional. How's it going to account for it? You say it accounts for it, unless you're feeding it back computer data of directional data constantly as it moves its axis in a three-dimensional nature on a sphere surface. How do you mean it can account for it? Now, if it's just an intolerance that if you just sit it still, it'll drift at 15 degrees an hour, how do you think you're going to recorrect for that behavior with a three-dimensionally moving object in free space negotiating a curved surface? How are you going to computationally feed that back into the gyro when it's supposed to be telling you what direction you are?
Well, just like a watch, if you lose seconds over many days, then you can allow for that, can't you?
Your mic's way too hot, by the way. Either you're too close or you've got your gain too high. Clipping.
Do they wind the watch at 20,000 RPMs?
Okay, let's put it this way, Paul. Brian's just given an example where you take, admittedly, a normal compass, you spin up, or whatever the phraseology is, your fibre optic gyro, and then you reference it to a direction, we'll say north. Okay? And then you set it off and off it goes. Well, if that tool is being continually three-dimensionally recorrected for, then again, I don't see how it's serving any purpose if you're having to tell it what direction you're going. Maybe you can explain that to me. If you're trying to extract that data from it, not give it.
Nathan, it's set on the ground. Once in the air, you can't.
You could make allowance for that, couldn't you? You could say every 10 hours at flight, there's a small amount of drift, and then you just add or take that off.
In what direction? I mean, if you're traversing the surface and moving in multiple directions, once you've left the ground, you're saying it will keep track of the non-inertial reference frame beneath, turning beneath. But if it's doing that, if it's correcting for that, that means that the gyroscopic or fibre optic compass or whatever it's being applied to is accounting for the Earth turning beneath it. That's the information it'd have to be feeding back. But that would shorten the flight times.
I'm not claiming that the compass or the gyro would account for that. I'm saying
that is what you were saying. Yeah, that's exactly what you were saying. You were saying it would account for it. You would give it the data to account for it. That's what you were saying.
No, the information would be to the pilot, so he'd know if there's 1 degree of drift per 10 hours that he needs to take account for that. Make allowance for that.
Well, but they would have to make an allowance that would mean that the reason for making that allowance, if they did, which they don't, would be because Earth would be turning beneath them to need to make that account. And that would shorten flight times. Or less.
Yeah, but now I'm not arguing from that position. I'm talking about tolerance of the machine itself. Tolerance.
But the whole point of the light gyros, it was that there was less problems. They were more reliable. There wasn't. What can happen with mechanical gyros is because there's moving parts that they can end up with wear and tear having a problem. But once the moving parts are in good nick, there isn't a problem. And that's why light gyros are chosen over mechanical gyros, because there isn't moving parts. There is only the movement of light within them. And that's what makes them more reliable.
What I'm trying to establish is, are they as near as perfect as makes no difference? Or are they... Or is there something to make allowance for? I don't know, because I'm not a pilot.
That's what I was trying to establish, Paul. I was saying, is it the fact that gyros have to deal with and account for 15 degrees an hour drift? And I say, no, that negates their usefulness when you're trying to extrapolate three-dimensional data from them in regards to them being fixed in space. Well, if you're having to account for something on top of that, then that negates their useful nature. Now, you're saying if there's a tolerance issue, because there's a certain amount of friction in the bearing over a course of, say, 7 days, that is going to cause 5 degrees of drift within the cage rather than it being completely parallel in the cage, it's 5 degrees off because of the mechanical bearing. It's not perfect. It's touching at the end of the day, so it drags a tiny, tiny, tiny amount, and that adds up over time, blah, 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 blah. Can you account for that? Well, yeah, I can appreciate that in a mechanical terms, yes, you could just account for that. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about accounting for the claim of Earth turning beneath the gyro compass. That's what actually needs to be corrected for if the claim is true. Why would it be drifting at 15 degrees an hour if it's claimed to do so? Now, first we have to establish, do gyros drift at 15 degrees an hour? Now, based on my understanding, that makes them less than useful. Now, if they do, yeah, then why are they doing it? Well, if the claim from the globe is true, then it's because Earth's turning beneath them that they drift at 15 degrees an hour. Now, that's something we'd have to account for on top of that, and we don't. So that rules that out. So therefore, we're only left with, presumably, what your question's revolving around, which is the mechanical tolerance of the device. And Brian saying, no, you're asking now, as well as me, well, is it the case that as near as makes no damn it, they remain fixed in space? Well, yeah, that's their useful property, and they're even less likely to mechanical tolerances when it's a ring laser or fibre optic gyro, I think is Brian's answer. Are we all on the same page now?
Yeah, I'm just trying to eliminate any wiggle room that people have that claim that there's drift.
Yeah, mechanical versus Earth turning beneath. The thing is, Paul, I want them to say there is. Let me just explain. Let's say, for the sake of argument, somebody says, yeah, absolutely, I confirm. All of them, gyro, the non-mechanical, or including the mechanical, are all, without exception, susceptible to a 15 degrees an hour deviation. They move in the cage at 15 degrees an hour. And I go, okay, why? Well, if you're a globe believer, you would assert that that's because the Earth has moved underneath the fixed spinning frame of the gyro. So the gyro is spinning, but the cage, which is attached to the ground, has caused you to notice the gyro look like it's moved. It hasn't, it's remained fixed in space, that's what gyros do, but the cage attached to the ground moving at 15 degrees an hour has moved as a result of Earth turning beneath the fixed frame of the gyro. Well, if that's the case, Earth's moving underneath the fixed frame of the gyro, which means Earth's a non-inertial turning reference frame and turning underneath gyros in aeroplanes. Okay, so Earth is turning underneath aeroplanes for us to see this 15 degrees an hour drift then. That would shorten flight times. Going west.
Correct.
So yeah, let them. Oh, it's caused by Earth turning underneath. Oh, happy days. So it's not Simon Dan telling me that my reference frames are ruined. You're saying this is because Earth's turning underneath, precisely as the globe Earth is intentionally claiming. That's the standard rhetoric. Coriolis drift is the title. Earth turning beneath as a non-inertial turning reference frame, causing a 15 degrees an hour claim drift in the gyro. Not that gyros drift, that doesn't happen, but they claim to by globe believers who say it's caused by Earth turning beneath as a second reference frame, which would mean that Earth has a rim velocity of 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, and if you jump up and down, Earth would be turning underneath you at a rate of 1,000 miles an hour, and you'd notice. Further to that, if you were travelling west, Earth's assisting your travelling time, reducing it massively, because it's turning underneath the aeroplane, for us to worry about this drift at 15 degrees an hour that we're observing in the gyro. It's not actual drift, it's just Earth turning beneath planes, because obviously everyone travelling west goes, isn't it delightful that we get there so much quicker, with Earth turning beneath, so that we have to worry about 15 degrees an hour drift in the gyro, that nobody's experiencing?
They would have you believe that when your gyro's drifting, no matter how many degrees, you take it back in and say, hey, I got a broken gyro. Can you replace it with a new one? And they said, well, what's going on? Well, it's drifting at sometimes 10, sometimes 15 degrees.
Their turn, says the manufacturer. Do they bollocks?
No, hang on. And manufacturer says, oh, you got one of those ether gyros. Here, let me give you one that works.
Right, well, if they're drifting because of Coriolis, then they just need to install a Coriolis correction device, and it will just even out again.
But again, a Coriolis correction device, if you see a gyro drifting at 15 degrees an hour and go, oh, right, that's caused by Earth turning underneath it, right? Well, the gyro does actually remain fixed in free space. It's just spinning in free space. It's not actually drifting, because what you're observing is not actual drift. The cage moves around the gyro. The gyro doesn't move. That's the whole point of the gyro. It remaining fixed in, spinning in free space, not changing. Like a bicycle wheel, you turn on your finger, you move your finger around, and it stays horizontal. Why? Because it's performing a gyroscopic motion. Well, that's what's useful. So when you see the cage move around the gyro from your position, standing in the same reference frame as the cage, it looks like the gyro drifts. It doesn't. It's fixed in space. It's the cage moving with Earth turning underneath that gyro in fixed space. So Earth's turning underneath. Yeah, that's the globe's claim that Earth turns underneath. It's called Coriolis effect. But that would shorten your flight times when travelling west, because Earth's turning underneath aeroplanes for that to be the case. It just does not happen. Is that it? I was going to have a short after show today, so unless there's any fundies going to step in. Any fundies? Hello? It's going to be a short after show if not.
I have something to present in a second, Nathan. Don't go away
yet.
About that. I have to join in.
Oh, I don't know about that. It's going to be a short after show, I'm afraid.
It'll only take a minute.
Yeah, I don't believe that. 1 second.
Just give me a couple of minutes. Well, we're just on the gyros.
Go on then.
Go
on.
I stated earlier. Go on. I stated earlier, or I've stated before, where I got my information from was from an Indian naval captain. When I say he's naval, it could have been just a captain of a large, like a shipping company or something. I'm not sure if he was Navy. Sorry.
Or he could have just owned a restaurant. Could have just been lying. You could be making this whole thing up. Anyway, carry on.
He was in a curry when he met him.
He said, he was stating that the reason that the light gyros are more reliable than the mechanical ones is because the mechanical ones have moving parts, and when those moving parts become a bit loose or get worn or whatever, what happens is, because of that situation, what happens is there can be a little bit of deviation, with the mechanical ones, but that doesn't happen with the light gyros because there's no mechanical thing to go wrong. It's just light, just lasers or whatever. So the thing about that is that there isn't going to be the drift or any deviation, because there isn't, like, how could you use a gyro that's drifting at 15 degrees an hour? You'd never know where you are. It'd be pointless.
Defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Defeats the purpose.
You could
completely.
have like a clock with you, but still, is it even gonna, like, even if a mechanical gyroscope would typically after a while start deviating slightly, is that deviation really 50 degrees an hour?
No.
I don't think so.
No, it'll never be anything like that. And I tell you why. Because in the gyro compass, and I've said this before, in the gyro compass, they use a vertical gyroscope. And the thing about it is that the north-facing axle of that gyroscope is connected by a sprung wire to 0 on the compass card. 0 is always north. 90 degrees is east. 90 degrees is east. 170 is south. Sorry, not 170. 270 is west.
180.
180. What happened? I mean, my brain got.
You'd make a great pilot.
East,
coming into land on
270
runway.
is west.
Runway. Is it 27? Is it 27 or is it 18?
yeah. Mix it all up. Yeah. So 180 is south, 270 is west, and 0 is not, or 360. 0 or 360, but they call it just 0 is north. So if that gyroscope is moving, then it will pull the compass card with it. That's the whole point. So that's how they know that, like, they wouldn't connect the 0. Like, that's the whole point of it, is that it keeps the compass card pointing north. That's the point of it. So if that gyro is messing around or deviating in any way, then the compass card will be deviating, which means they'll be completely off course.
Right.
And they still use mechanical gyro compasses in ships. It's not like they all use fiber optic gyros. They don't. They still use mechanical gyro compasses in ships. They're still selling. People are still buying them and using them in big ships.
Perfect. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you, first and foremost, to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the PayPal link and thanks button and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!